Smith, he's like, we don't know, teach us, tell us, because I was telling you what I had to do. But let me show you what I was talking about now. This is what I've got to do to finish up. I got my turbo covered up because you don't want anything getting inside, and I didn't screw down these hoses. This is the that's the coolant hose, and I'm gonna take this back off because I've got to put little round gaskets on top and on the bottom, but I just put those in there just to close them up overnight. And this is the oil line hose. I've got to take this and fill this up with oil and put some oil in the turbo, right? And of course I've got to attach the front of the turbo. I've got to attach this hose back to cover this front of this turbo and attach all of my parts and the sensors in the hole. I've got to reattach these little pieces inside of on the actuator. There's a bolt that go in there, and it holds some of the cords into this little piece here. It'll hold some of the, like the speed sensor and then the Nox sensors that I'm going to run back to the elbow when I put the elbow back on, and it'll plug up down here. That's the plug for the Nox sensor right there. I got to plug that back up. That's the plug for the speed sensor. And this hose right here runs under the bottom of the turbo. That's another coolant hose that runs through the top, goes to the bottom, and it circulates coolant through the turbo. And so I've got to I've got to go down there and put the gaskets on that and then just bolt that back up. I've already got the oil line on the bottom hooked up. And next thing I'm going to do, if I ever have to take this off again, for those that run into trouble like I do sometimes, getting that bottom oil line on can be very difficult. I'm going to put 2 studs in there, and then it won't be as difficult getting that oil line and the gasket back on. And so I've already got all the bolts on the turbo tightened up and with anti-seize on them as well. And so that's for the turbo. Once I hook this stuff back up, as I just explained, then I'll be good to go. But before I put the Nox sensor on, this is the Nox sensor, the new Nox sensor. What I've got to do is put this elbow back in place, and I'll put that elbow back in place, which goes there. I've already cleaned it out, so it's clean. Once I get the elbow in place, then I'll tighten down the Nox sensor, and then I'll plug up the Nox sensor. And once I do all of that up here, I've got to also get the oil filter. I'm going to put the oil filter, spin that on it. This is the oil filter housing right here. I'm going to add a little oil in that oil filter and just push it up there and spin it on by hand. It's so much easier to put it on while I've got all this stuff out of the way. And once I get the oil filter on, then I'll start back. I've got to add coolant. Back in here, I'll hook the coolant line up, but coolant will be the last thing I add after I've got everything done. I've got to put the breather box back on, which is right here that this box is sitting on. I've got to put that breather box back on there, and that holds this air filter. I'm putting a new air filter on. Then I've got to put the battery box, which is right here. I'll attach the battery box and put that back on, and then you see the battery right there. I'll plug the battery up. But before I do all of that, the first things I'm going to do is start with getting the turbo lines and all that stuff hooked up and getting the elbow back on and getting the sensor in. And then I'll come back up here, and the last things I'll do is put the battery back in, because I don't want power going to it until I plug up, get the entire exhaust together. And this is also something I got to do. I'm going to replace the crankcase filter again, because I've replaced new oil and all of that. So that's also going to be one of the last things I do, is take that cover off, and that's the crankcase filter in that box there. I'm going to put a new crankcase filter in. But as part of the exhaust, the elbow goes on, the Nox sensor, got to put that back in, and then this is the straight pipe that runs from the elbow, from the turbo elbow to this DEF. This is my new DEF tank. I've got the old one that I kept, but these are the gaskets. I'm just going to reuse these gaskets because they're still good from the last time I put them on. The last time I took the DEF off, I just pressure washed it. These gaskets aren't bad, so I'm just going to reuse those gaskets. They're only like $30 a piece when you need new ones, so I figure I just reuse them. I don't need new ones. And then before I put the DEF tank up in there, I've got to add the pre-exhaust, the pre-temp sensor. Goes right here. This is a pre-temp depth sensor. So for those who have a depth tank diesel, when you look at the two sensors, one goes here. It's actually three sensor. One, and then this differential pressure sensor that I showed in the video last night. These are just straight hoses that hook up to the differential pressure sensor. This is the pre-temp sensor, and this is the post-temp sensor. I'm going to add those on. I'm going to put a little anti-season on a thing and put those on. And then I'll put the gaskets on, and I'll put that hook the def up before this. This is the SCR that I've got hanging down here. It's only held on by some hangers. Those hangers are not that easy to get off by hand, so I use that tool right there. That's my hanger remover, and that's also sometimes how I push them back on, but I also spray a lot of WD-40 to get them off. So I'll put this def back in to the straight pipe. Once I get the straight pipe on, I'll put that straight pipe on. Then I'll put the def on. Then I'll lift this up and hook this SCR to the def and hook this, bolt all this back up together and put the hangers on. And then I'll start plugging up all the sensors. Yep. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing. And yeah, so going live will only slow me down because, as you can see, I can be a bit of a talker, and I'll start reading comments and stuff, and I need to just focus because it's hot out here today, and the more I get done today, the less I have to do tomorrow. I can have me a long spa day tomorrow if I get most everything done today. And this is easy stuff. Once I cut this phone off and I get quiet and start focusing, I'll get it done really, really quick, right? And so anyway, that's what I've got to do. So that's an explanation. And I don't think I explained the breather box. Yeah, all this stuff over here, stuff right there, that attaches to the breather box that goes right in front of the turbo, right there where the open flywheel is on the turbo. So all of that breeze, the air filter I'm putting in, that's why it's not good to keep a dirty air filter, because it goes into your turbo, and not changing the air filters on time could also mess up the turbo, right? And so anyway, and so in my case, when my old turbo was bad, it's not really a reflection of me not changing parts, because I keep the oil change and I keep the air filter change. It was just the turbo just was defective. And now me putting this in and cleaning everything behind the turbo, all of that pipe, all the pipes, the DPF, putting new stuff on, that's just going to make it even better. So if anything happens with this turbo, is a defective turbo. But we went with another brand this time. So hopefully, because they don't even sell the old brand I had, which was Molly, and it didn't last that long. So this turbo will should last much longer if it's built correctly inside and there are no leaking seals. Yep, so those are just connections up there. That connects to the breather box. That's what covers the air filter. Then that's the next connection, and that right there goes straight through to the turbo, and it connects to that pipe right there. So anyway, this is what your little country bunking is going to be up to. Getting my hands, well, I got these gloves, so they might not, I'm trying these new gloves, so they might not rip as much. And see, this is a reason that me trying to set up the camera, I can't do it. I can't set up the camera while I work, guys, because it just slows me down. And I just put it up under here just to see if I could, because you can't really see what I'm doing anyway. I'm putting this pipe back on, this straight pipe from the elbow that goes from the elbow to the turbo, and you can't really see what I'm doing. So after I get this on and go to the next thing, I'll just stop the camera. I tried, and I got a lot to do today because I gotta bolt this bracket up. This bracket right here is what holds this. That's the only thing that holds this straight pipe up here, and it bolts onto the transmission. Let me come down. It bolts on with 3 bolts. Got the bracket backwards. Let me see, how do I put this? Okay. Make sure. Okay, yeah, the bracket goes like that. So what I'll do, because I can't move this transmission line, so I'll get it in place. I'll put one bolt in to hold it, and I'll get the others in. It's like two 15mm bolts and one 13mm. This is a long, deep bolt right here. And I got that screwed in all the way just by hand. And that's enough. Now, I ain't got to worry about fighting it. Hold it up to get the other two bolts in. I'll tighten them once I get all of them in. And this 13mm small bolt just goes onto the bracket where it meets the transmission lines. And this, the back of that bracket is the bracket where this 13mm goes is threaded, so it just screws into the bracket right there. Now the last bolt. Go. Just gotta make sure that bracket all the way on. That bracket wasn't all the way on. All right. I'm gonna pause this video till I get it on. That way it ain't so long. Okay. I got the bolts in. These were the 3 bolts here that I was tightening up. 2 15, 15, 15, 13. And see this straight pipe? I haven't got the elbow up there yet. See the elbow goes up there? This straight pipe, that's all that's holding this pipe. You can slide, I can slide it in. I can slide it actually out of this, that bracket. That bracket just holds it up there. Once I bolt on the elbow, then that'll be holding it from that end. Then the turbo holds it from this end. And then I just got to come down here and plug this plug in. But I'm going to wait to plug it up until I get everything bolted together. And then the transmission line needs to be bolted back down. But I'm going to do that from the top because I got to make sure it's not touching the turbo. Last time I put in my turbo, I had the transmission line touching the turbo and it rubbed a hole in it, the turbo, and my transmission fluid was leaking. So I had to replace the transmission lines, right? So I'll do that from up top. I'll fasten that bracket for the transmission lines up top. Yep. And then now I'm just going to go ahead and go to my DPF. I've got aluminum foil on the end of my DPF nozzle, the depth injector. That's the depth injector nozzle. Got aluminum foil so no air gets in there, and I got aluminum foil up here so no air gets in there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and get the I'll wait to put the depth tape on. I'm going to put the elbow on now. I'm about to put my elbow back on. I've got the gasket right here. I'm reusing the same gasket. It's not damaged. So instead of me putting a new gasket on, I'm just going to reuse the same gasket. And I've got the bracket already in place up there. I just set that up there. And then once I put the elbow on, I can open it and slide it back over the elbow. And then I've got the bracket for the bottom portion, the elbow to the straight pipe right there. So let me put the phone down and get it in place. Got the top on. It was a little banger getting that thing back in there with the bolt. I had to really get on my knees and get up in there because it kept popping. That band kept popping out of place. Now I gotta get this bad boy in there. So let me get that one in there. Okay, this is the sensor. I've got that bracket back in place. I've got it down on there really tight. Nothing is able to move, so now this straight pipe is held in again. All of that's tight up there. And now I'm gonna take this sensor, this $500 sensor, and I'm gonna screw it in start it by hand, and then I'll get my wrench and finish it off. And it looks like it's, I don't know, I guess that's anti-seize. They put that anti-seize on there. I'm assuming that's anti-seize. It's white, but I don't know what that is. I hope it's not thread locker. Whatever it is, I guess it's meant to go on there. It's easy to get off with the wrench anyway. So I got that in there. That's as far as I can go by hand. Now I'll get my wrench in. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. No, it's not cross-threaded. It goes on easy, okay? Yep. So I'll get the wrench. Finish tightening that bad boy down. Here, I had these were delivered to me yesterday, Duratech. They're long wrenches, 6-point wrenches. 6-point wrenches are very good, better than a 12-point. It's anti-slip. So they're 6-point, plus they got anti-slip ridges in them. And I'm so glad that they were delivered yesterday, because now I'm about to put on back on the Nox Sensor. And as I was saying in the previous video, when I took off the Nox Sensor, it's a small 8mm nut and bolt, and that space down there is so tight, but having this longer wrench is better. And I've got another long wrench as well, but I've already put that up because I just wanted to use my new wrench if I can. But on one side, I never even took that ratchet down there off. You can see that wrench. I never took that ratcheting wrench off. That's 8mm. It's small. And so I'll add the nut on there. And then I've got to get this bolt into the top section. As I take this, I'll put this down in there. It's a tight space. I'm going to share this video because this will save someone from breaking their Nox Sensor tab. It's hot out here, but I feel good. Putting this Nox Sensor back on, it just took me like an hour to figure out this tab to put it back on, because once you sit it in there, it doesn't seat all the way, and then when you try to apply force, it doesn't go down. So I made sure the tab was pulled up. The tab was pulled up as far as it could go, and I kept trying to pry it down. I couldn't pry it down, and so I got my little my hand wrench to try to press it in there a little more, and it wouldn't go anymore. I didn't want to break it, so let me show you. I took this entire yellow tab out of there. I snapped it out of there without breaking it. And so I had the tab out, and then I tried to plug it in, and it went straight all the way down. It sit flush, because I know it was supposed to sit flush. And then so I tried to put the tab in, the locking tab, while it was in there, and it wouldn't go back in. So I had to unplug it, snap the locking tab back in, and when you pull it out, when the plug was out, you had to pull it out to snap the tab back in. The trick is, once you snap the tab back in and pull it up as far as it'll go, then you got to push the plug in as far as it'll go, and there'll be a small little gap there. Then you have to, when you see that small little gap, you press down on the locking tab and push the plug down as you're pressing down. And the lines on the side of the locking tab are like curved, so it'll allow the lock to go all the way in and sit flush in. Now I can go ahead and press the lock the remainder way and lock it all the way in. Coming out, for some reason, when I unplugged it out, I didn't have this issue. But going in, I had that issue. So you don't want to lock it when you get it down. Once you have it all the way open, and then you push it down in there till it can't go anymore. You apply pressure, pushing it down, and also applying pressure to the locking tab, and it'll continue to slide the remainder of the way and lock down in there. Whew! I know that just saved somebody. So let me finish doing what I've got to do. All right, guys, I've got my syringe to add the oil, 50 milliliters of oil is what I'm squirting down in here. Going to the oil feed. I'm gonna add my fuel filter as well. I'm gonna put some oil in oil filter. Whenever I change the oil, I don't ever add oil in the oil filter when I change it. But you know what? I'm going to add some in there now, boy. Probably gonna start adding oil in there. I've been changing like that, putting a dry filter in forever. But I'll probably just start adding some. Come on, Turbo, drink this. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta put the phone down because I need to be spinning that wheel while I'm putting oil in. I'll give that some time to penetrate down in there. I'm gonna go get my oil filter. This is the bolt that goes down in there. This black piece here, that's a gasket. So you replace that gasket as well when you replace the turbo. And then there's a little small gasket right there, rubber gasket. Replace that as well. That spins down in there, and then the bolt spins on top of this to tighten. But while I'm waiting for that oil to penetrate down in there, spinning this wheel, I'm going to oh well, some wasted back out of here. I'm gonna go and get my oil filter, and I'll put this in. That bottom bolt for this Nox sensor, I didn't even put it in because I dropped the nut and I couldn't find it. It's so tiny. But I don't think this is gonna be going anywhere. This is how I put the oil line back on. Now I'm about to put the coolant line on, and this is how you put the coolant line on. You put just the coolant bolt. One bolt goes on the top. So I'll put the denture one on the top. Let me see. I've already put this basket back into. This holds the battery. So you see this coolant gasket. Oh, my glove got stuck. These gloves, they're a little bigger, but hey, that's its first tear I just got into this doggone thing. But this is only the first pair of gloves. I changed one because one of the one of my fingers on the gloves, it popped off. But other than that, I just got another one. This has been the same original one. So I've only used 3 gloves so far. They do last longer. So thanks for letting me know that, my brother. Forgot your name. But so anyway, I got that gasket on the top, and this is the same thing that's on the bottom. I just didn't show when I did the bottom because I was trying to hurry up. And then this goes on the bottom. I just got to work this on. Work that on there. And boom. Look. Gasket on top, gasket on bottom. And then this just screws back down into the top. Like that. And 22 millimeter. So it's tight by here, and I'm going to put a ratchet on it. Okay. Now I got that. And I've been taking my time too. I need to speed up because it's already about, it's already almost 6 o'clock. I only got 2 more hours before dark. So, I've already got the speed sensor hooked up, Nox sensor hooked up, coolant line on the bottom, oil line on the bottom, oil line on top, coolant line on top, all the bolts to the manifold. Got the intercooler hooked up to the breather. Got the actuator plugged up. Okay, so now got the oil filter back in. All right, this is the plug for the breather box. So I'll stick this over here out of the way. And then these are plugs for the breather box. So yeah, let me start putting the breather box back on and hooking that. This hose goes up there, and then those other two pieces, that other piece, and then I got to put the air filter gasket, put a new air filter. So I'll be done with the engine once I get all this stuff in. And then I'm going to change that crankcase filter, and I still got to get down there and put the DPF filter on. So yeah, let me stop recording and hurry up. And then I got to add coolant then I got to put this battery in. I got to hook all the batteries back up, add coolant, let it run. I got to add oil and coolant, let it run. So yeah, I can concentrate better when I'm not recording. I try to record bits and pieces for those of you who wanted to see, but let me get back focused. Now I'm trying to get this DPF filter back up under here. I left the top alone. I gotta still add coolant and change the crankcase filter, but I was like, you know what? Before the sun goes down, let me go ahead and did I drop? Oh wow! Not the aluminum foil off of that thing up there. I was like, let me go ahead and get up under this truck so I don't be on the ground when the sun go down. I got lights. I can do the easy stuff up under the hood. I mean, this ain't hard either, but when the sun go down, it'll be difficult getting up under it. Just gotta line up this pipe with the DPF. I've already got the gasket on. Woo! There we go, baby. Now I'm gonna plug up this pipe where I unplugged it from, since I've got the back portion. This is the first plug. There's nothing else to plug up top. So the plugs start here, and I gotta go all the way down the left side and plug everything back up. All right, the first plug is in. And where are my bolts? I know I left my bolts up here. There we go. These are the bolts for this little bracket. Is what holds on to the side of this DPF filter. So I'm going to push with 2 hands. I'm going to slide this bracket back on before, oh shucks, I'm sliding the filter back out. I should have put it on before I got it up here. Just need a little force. These gloves are really, really tough. This is my same pair. Should have sprayed some WD. Where my WD-40 at? Spray that on this thing. Should have sprayed it before I start sliding it on here. Just make it slide on a little easier. There we go. WD-40 slide them hangers on real good. I'm get this thing lined back up here. There we go. Now I need some lights. There we go. All right. off. And I'm gonna stop this video because it's gonna take me a minute to fasten these 2 bolts in the side, and I ain't gotta make it that long. Woo, woo, woo. My little arms are burning, baby. Getting them hangers back on was no joke. I had to use my knees and everything. And WD-40 made it work. So I got the hangers back on. I got everything plugged up. Just rolling up. Make sure I got everything. Got that hanger up there back on. Got the post-temp sensor, pre-temp sensor plugged up. Where's the def? Got that hanger back on. Okay. Got the def plugged up, plugged in. That hanger. Differential pressure sensor plugged in. Now all I gotta do is bolt these 4 bolts down, and got this hanger back on, and bolt these 3, and I'm done up under here. Got everything plugged up. Yep. Let me get the bolt. Good night, good night. Good night, family. What you doing, Mate? I'm still out here. I spent my time running my doggone mouth in the store. And I lost a little over an hour. And then I stopped and took a break and ran and got me a smoothie. Pretty much all I have for today. I'm just taking my time. I just finally got the entire exhaust back on. Those hangers, I recorded the clips, as you saw in those hangers that I've been putting on had me hung up for a bit. And now everything gets easier and easier for me. I still got to put the crankcase filter on. It's not dark yet, so I can take those bolts out and go ahead and throw that in. But as far as adding I'm not going to connect the batteries just yet. I'll wait until in the morning, connect the batteries. I'll add the coolant in the morning, and I'll add the oil in the morning. Okay, that's in there tight enough. I don't think this battery is, nope, that ain't going no place. So I got the battery in there. Got the battery in there. I can put these up. Not gonna need these again. Oh. You got so many different little sockets and things like that. I like to keep my stuff organized. Putting most of my tools up. I was trying to clean up as I was going, because that's the thing that I don't like the most, is when it's time to clean up. That's what I don't like. But when I start getting to the end of everything, I'll leave this stuff out. So in the morning, oh, I forgot to put this up. Now let me move over here and get the crankcase filter. That's what I don't like, when everything piles up on me at one time. Well, when I have to clean up everything. So what makes it easier for me is when I'm getting to the end and I gotta clean up everything. It makes it easier if I just start moving stuff like little by little. That makes it easier on me. Like as I'm done with stuff. And then sometimes also what annoys me is I'll make a mistake, and this new ladder, I bought me a new ladder, and It's off a little bit. I mean, I like it. I can go higher, but then it's like I'm too high. So I have to extend my doggone back even more. I don't like it versus the other one. It's like I'm way high. Let's see if I can reposition this phone. Can't really see what I'm doing. I don't know where I could put this phone. Maybe right there. Maybe right there. I've already shown the video on how to change this crankcase filter. Crankcase filter replacement. And that's all I'm doing right now. So this is gonna be boring with me just filming this and not really saying much. So I will stop this recording and keep doing my thing. And that's all I'm doing is replacing this thing again. I don't know how I accidentally unplugged that computer. So anyway, let me get to what I'm doing. I dropped my freaking all cap while I was loosening the bolts. As a matter of fact, let me take these bolts out of my pocket for the crankcase filter. I'm gonna leave these right outside. I dropped my all top daggett and I couldn't find it, and I thought it sounded like it landed down in the oil pan, but I searched and searched. It's not in the oil pan. So I was going to change the crankcase filter, but that just put a dent in everything, because while I was looking for my oil top, sun went all the way down. Now it's dark and I'm annoyed. I think it probably went, it's not in the oil bottom of the tray, up under the oil pan, that little plastic tray. That's what it sounded like it hit, plastic. So I'm thinking it's probably fell in the little fins behind where the fan is. Oh, so annoying. But nevertheless, I'll come back out and find that first thing in the morning. And then I'll change the crankcase filter. And then add the oil and coolant and hook her batteries up and give her her run. Morning, everyone. So last night, I was taking my crankcase filter off. And I accidentally dropped the oil tank, the oil cap. And I heard it thud. So I tried looking for it. By the time I tried looking for it, it was already getting dark. And I was like, okay, I won't be taking the crankcase filter off tonight. But I heard it thud, so I checked the oil pan, the plastic oil piece up under there where the oil filter is, to see if it fell there. It wasn't there. And I was like, I knew it must be under this radiator area. But there's a cover up under there with some bolts around the fan. You got to loosen the plastic stuff. And I was like, I'll start in the morning. And so sure enough, I started out loosening the covers around the fan and the radiator, and the cap fell out. So I'm back on it. Now I got to put everything back together that I loosened to get the oil cap. Then I can start back on my crankcase filter and get the fluids and everything in, and then we're going to crank her up and give her a run. Got the new crankcase filter on. I'm keeping the old one because I've noticed the old one is not even, it still looks new. Like the filters inside are still white. They're not saturated with oil, but you can tell it's been used. So and it's really light. So I'm keeping it, and I could have left it on, but because I've replaced the turbo and it's a requirement, it's even in the paperwork when you receive the turbo, replace the oil, crankcase filter, all of that. You want everything new flowing into the new turbo. And so I will keep the old one, and you know, over time diesel oil gets old anyway. And then what I'll do, I like to change my crankcase filter when I'm changing the oil, but the next crankcase filter change, I don't have to change it when I'm changing oil. I'll just put the old one back on and get more life out of that one, and then also change that one a little earlier than normal as well, because it's not even bad. Now I'm going to add the coolant. The price of the diluted coolant is the same as the concentrate, so it's smarter just to get the concentrate because you get like 2 for 1. Just pour half of this in one bottle and put half water. And so I don't have empty bottles. These are already diluted bottles, the remainder of what I had. So I'm going to use these, and I'll pour some of that in one of these and add water, and we will see how much we need. Okay guys, I have already topped off the oil, the fuel. So just to recap everything that was done to this truck: the turbo was replaced, the crankcase filter was replaced, the engine air filter was replaced, the oil was changed, the DPF filter was replaced, the sensors, the pre-temp and the post-temp sensor on the DPF filter were replaced with that. The Nox sensor was replaced. The straight pipe from the elbow to the turbo, from the turbo, the straight pipe, the elbow from the turbo, and the straight pipe from the turbo elbow to the DPF filter, that was taken off and washed and cleansed. And now everything has been put back together. I've topped off the fuel. I have not cranked the truck yet, but my engine light, what it does is when you have no codes, when you switch your vehicle on, this light should blink about 8 to 10 times, and that means there's no stored codes. And so what I'm just going to do is do a system scan and just let it scan my entire system. And I don't know if my computer's going to go through the scan. I have not renewed my computer yet, but it looks like it's going through with the basic program that I had on here. So it's doing the entire scan. Now it has, so it's basically already scanned the entire system, and it's showing that everything is scanned. And if there were any codes, it would have showed me the codes. So there are no pending codes. See, if I hit clear diagnostic test codes, it says there's no diagnostic test codes that need to be cleared. Now, before I had that Nox sensor, before I replaced the Nox sensor, I had a stored code, which means that when you get a stored code, even though you clear the codes to make the check engine light go off, stored codes, they stay there because that is a consistent problem. And that Nox sensor was bad, but you can continue to drive with a bad Nox sensor. Give yourself some time over time, but sometimes you can clear the code and it'll come out of stored, and when it first starts to go bad, it won't even come back on or be stored after the first couple of months or something like that. You know, it gives you a lot of warning, but here we're showing that I have no stored codes. And so what I'm going to do now is just crank her up and let her run. Okay, I've unplugged the computer. She's running. Now I'm going to take off the cap to the coolant reservoir so that the air can bleed out of the coolant system. So this is building up air pressure, and it's already sucking some down in there. So I'm going to take this cap off. Let it get up to operating temperature. I'm going to let that cap stay off and let it run, and that bleeds the air out of the system. I'll be able to see the bubbles start to bubble up in here, and that's so I don't crack the radiator or anything. So I'm going to let it run while I go ahead and put this tire back on. As you can see, I don't have any leaks or anything. When I was refilling the coolant, I splashed some, so that's what's wet here. I splashed some coolant, but so far everything looks good to go. I'm just gonna let it run while I'm gonna put this wheel cover back on after I take it for a spin. I'm not gonna put the wheel cover back on yet, but I'm gonna put the tire back on and then I'll drive it around, let it get up hot, and then I should have to add a little more coolant after it gets up to operating temperature. But it sounds good. I have no cold. Go for a drive. I don't know, I may get the dogs and drive out of town for about an hour just to give it a good dry. We may go to my mom's house and make sure I don't get any colds and everything is functioning properly. And then I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to treat myself tonight. I'm not doing any more work. This is enough work. God is good. You know, he's faithful. And I thank him that I was able to get this done. And I hope that I was able to help somebody, and I hope you guys were entertained by just watching me work. I have taken this girl on a spin, and I've only had to stop and add coolant twice, so I think the coolant should be full by now, because I only took out about 4 gallons, and it rides good. I can hear the turbo spooling. The power seems really, really good. It rides really, really good. So anyway, that's it.